They always believed happiness had a familiar flavor, smooth, sweet, predictable, like vanilla on a summer afternoon. But one cold evening, when a homeless little girl reached out and gently touched their son, that belief shattered forever. What happened next would change their lives in ways no one could have imagined. Before this story unfolds, take a second to subscribe, because stories like this remind us that the smallest moments can carry the biggest miracles. They used to say happiness was simple. For Daniel and Rebecca Morrison, happiness tasted like routine. It was the soft hum of their suburban life on the outskirts of a quiet American city, the kind of place where streets were clean, lawns were trimmed, and worries felt distant. Daniel believed happiness was earned through long hours at work, steady promotions, and careful planning. Rebecca believed happiness was holding things together, keeping the house warm, meals ready, and smiles intact. And for both of them, happiness was their 8-year-old son, Lucas. He was the center scoop of their lives, the flavor they thought would never change. Lucas was a gentle child, quieter than most boys his age. He liked drawing more than playing sports, and he noticed things others ignored. He noticed cracks in sidewalks, birds perched on electric wires, and the way people's expressions changed when they thought no one was watching. Daniel sometimes worried Lucas was too sensitive for the world, but Rebecca saw it as a gift. To her, Lucas had a heart that tasted life deeply, savoring every emotion like different flavors of ice cream melting slowly on the tongue. On a Friday evening in early winter, the Morrisons decided to break from routine. Daniel had just received a small bonus at work, not enough to change their lives, but enough to justify a family dinner downtown. The city lights were already glowing as they parked near a popular shopping district. Rebecca held Lucas's hand as they walked past storefronts, laughter spilling from restaurants, people wrapped in coats and comfort. They chose a place that served handmade ice cream alongside warm desserts, a cozy spot Lucas loved. Inside, the smell of sugar and coffee wrapped around them. Lucas stared at the display case like it was a museum of happiness. Chocolate, strawberry, mint chip, caramel swirl, flavors stacked like promises. Daniel smiled and asked him which one he wanted. Lucas hesitated, as he often did, then said he wanted to try something new, a mix of two flavors he had never combined before. Daniel laughed and told him that sometimes new flavors turned out to be the best. They didn't notice her at first. Outside, near the window, a little girl sat curled against the brick wall. She couldn't have been older than 7 or 8. Her jacket was too thin for the cold, her shoes worn down at the edges. Her hair was tangled, falling into her eyes. People walked past her without looking, their attention locked on phones, conversations, destinations. To most of them, she blended into the background like a shadow that didn't belong to the picture they wanted to see. Lucas noticed her. As he waited for his ice cream, he pressed his face against the glass and looked outside. His excitement faded into quiet focus. He tugged on Rebecca's sleeve and pointed. Rebecca followed his gaze and saw the girl sitting alone. For a brief second, discomfort flickered across her face. She looked away instinctively, the way people often do when confronted with suffering they don't know how to fix. Daniel paid and carried the tray to a small table near the window. Lucas barely touched his ice cream. He kept glancing at the girl outside. Finally, he asked a question that cut through the air like a crack in glass. Why is she sitting out there when it's so cold? Rebecca told him softly that sometimes people didn't have homes. Daniel added that there were shelters and help, trying to sound reassuring, trying to keep the world simple. Lucas nodded, but his eyes didn't leave the girl. After a few minutes, Lucas stood up. Before his parents could stop him, he walked to the door. Rebecca called his name, her voice sharp with panic. Daniel stood quickly, but Lucas was already outside. The cold hit Lucas like a slap. He walked slowly toward the girl, his breath puffing out in white clouds. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. Her eyes widened, not with fear but with surprise. No one ever approached her anymore, not without suspicion or pity. Lucas stopped a few feet away. He didn't know what to say at first. He just stood there, holding his cup of ice cream with both hands. Finally he spoke. "Do you like ice cream?" The girl stared at him confused. She nodded slowly. Lucas smiled a small, shy smile. He held out the cup. "You can have mine. It's good, but I think you might like it more." Rebecca rushed outside, her heart pounding. Daniel followed close behind. They expected resistance, maybe fear. Instead, they saw something that froze them in place. The girl reached out and touched Lucas's hand, not grabbing the ice cream yet, just touching him lightly, like she needed to confirm he was real. In that moment, something shifted. The girl's touch wasn't dramatic or desperate. It was gentle, almost reverent. Her fingers were cold, her skin rough. Lucas didn't pull away. He smiled at her, the same way he smiled at stray cats or wounded birds. To him, this wasn't charity. It was connection. The girl finally took the ice cream. Tears welled in her eyes as she tasted it. She closed her eyes, and for a second, she looked like any other child enjoying a treat. Daniel felt a tightness in his chest he couldn't explain. Rebecca covered her mouth, fighting back tears. They invited the girl inside. Her name was Lily. She spoke quietly, like she was afraid of taking up too much space. She told them she and her mother had been sleeping wherever they could find shelter. Her mother was sick, too weak to come out that night. Lily said she came to the shopping district because sometimes kind people left food behind. Daniel listened, his mind racing. He felt anger, guilt, confusion, all melting together into a bitter flavor he had never tasted before. He had always believed the world was mostly fair if you worked hard enough. Lily's existence challenged that belief. They bought her food. They bought extra to take back to her mother. Rebecca asked questions, careful not to pry too much. Lucas sat next to Lily, drawing on a napkin, showing her his pictures. Lily laughed softly, the sound surprising all of them. When they left that night, Daniel offered to drive them to a shelter. Lily hesitated. She said shelters were sometimes full, sometimes dangerous. Daniel felt helpless. He gave her his coat. Rebecca pressed money into her hand. Lily hugged Lucas before leaving, wrapping her arms around him tightly. That should have been the end of the story. It wasn't. Over the next few days, Lucas changed. He became quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped asking for new toys. He gave away snacks from his lunchbox. Rebecca noticed him staring out the window more often, lost in thought. One night, she found him crying in his room. He told her he couldn't stop thinking about Lily. He said happiness didn't taste the same anymore. He said it felt wrong to enjoy things when other kids were cold and hungry. Rebecca held him, her heart breaking. She realized that Lily hadn't just touched Lucas's hand. She had touched something deep inside him, something that couldn't be undone. Daniel tried to distract Lucas, to bring life back to normal. But normal no longer fit. The flavor had changed. A week later, Lucas got sick. It started with a fever, then weakness. They thought it was just a virus. But tests revealed something far worse. A rare heart condition, one that had gone unnoticed until now. The doctor explained that Lucas would eventually need a transplant. Without it, his life expectancy was limited. The room felt like it was collapsing. Rebecca couldn't breathe. Daniel felt the world tilt. Happiness, the flavor they thought they knew so well, turned sharp and unbearable. Days turned into weeks. Hospital rooms replaced dinner tables. Ice cream cups melted untouched. Lucas grew thinner, paler. But somehow his spirit remained gentle. He asked about Lily often. He asked if she was warm. He asked if she was safe. One afternoon, while Rebecca stepped out for coffee, Daniel sat alone with Lucas. Lucas looked at him with a seriousness beyond his years. "Dad," he said, "do you think Lily's mom needs a heart too?" Daniel broke down. The transplant list was long. Time felt like sand slipping through their fingers. Then something unexpected happened. A social worker visited their room. She told them about a woman who had recently passed away, a woman who had registered as an organ donor. Her heart was a match for Lucas. The donor's name was Maria. When Daniel asked to know more, the social worker hesitated, then said something that made his blood run cold. Maria had been homeless. She had died from complications related to untreated illness. Rebecca felt dizzy. Daniel asked one more question. Did she have a daughter? The answer came quietly. Yes. Her name was Lily. The room went silent. The woman who had given Lucas a second chance at life was Lily's mother. The same woman they had unknowingly turned away with food and small kindness, unaware of the deeper connection waiting to unfold. The transplant was successful. Lucas survived. But the story didn't end there either. When Lucas recovered enough to speak, he asked one thing. He wanted to see Lily. Daniel and Rebecca searched. It wasn't easy. Shelters, social services, endless paperwork. But eventually they found her. Lily had been placed in temporary foster care, quiet, withdrawn, carrying grief far heavier than her small frame. When Lucas and Lily reunited, there were no words at first. Lily stared at him, then placed her hand over his chest, right where her mother's heart now beat. She smiled through tears. Lucas smiled back. From that moment on, the Morrisons' lives changed completely. They became Lily's foster parents, then her adoptive parents. Their house filled with a different kind of happiness, one that wasn't smooth or predictable. It was messy, layered, sometimes painful. But it was real. Daniel left his high-paying job and started working with housing charities. Rebecca began volunteering with children in foster care. Lucas grew stronger, his heart beating steadily, carrying with it the echo of a woman's love and a child's sacrifice. They learned that happiness wasn't a single flavor. It wasn't vanilla or chocolate or something safe and familiar. Happiness was like ice cream with unexpected swirls, bitter notes, and surprising sweetness. Sometimes it melted too fast, sometimes it froze your hands. But when shared, when truly tasted, it became something unforgettable. And it all began with a homeless little girl who reached out and touched their son, changing the flavor of their lives forever. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments. From which part of the country are you watching this video today?